Welcome back to the Fast Life podcast, which is brought to you by Simpson Motorcycle Helmets. Simpson's been my helmet of choice for quite a few years now. You guys know all about them. They are the biggest sponsor of this podcast, and they keep my head safe and looking badass on the open road. If you want to find out more about them, check out SimpsonMotorcycleHelmets.com as well as Simpson Motorcycle Helmets on Instagram. Today's podcast is with my good friend Fish from Alleyway Kustoms. He's been on the podcast before. He was on earlier this January, and he built a really kick-ass bike for the People's Champ Born Free situation, but COVID kind of screwed that up last year, so he was kind of part of this year's Born Free, and we talk a little bit about that in this podcast, as well as some other things. So let's get right into the sponsors, and then we'll jump right into this episode. If you haven't heard, House of Harley is throwing down a killer industry party this December 4th during the Mama Tried weekend in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Come out and meet tons of brands and individuals from all aspects of the bike world. And don't forget that houseofharley.com is your place to order OEM Harley Davidson parts and motor clothes. And with our Fast Life discount code, you're going to save up to 13% on your online purchases. I hope to see you guys at the party, and if you're not already, give these guys a follow on Instagram at House of Harley. thundermax and their ECM computers are designed to provide your EFI-equipped Harley Davidson with the most advanced auto-tuning available. A thundermax ECM eliminates tuning hassles when upgrading your exhaust, air cleaner, or when adding a big bore kit or cam, by allowing you the ability to simply download a base map and let the computer do the rest. thundermax is also in the suspension game with their iRide rear suspension. This is a performance rear air ride which gives you the ability to adjust many aspects from the handlebar mounted touchscreen. This rear suspension is the best of both worlds. Check out these products at shoptmax.com, where you can use the offer code FASTLIFE for 10% off, and don't forget to follow thundermax EFI on Instagram. Lexan Moto is my Bluetooth headset company and has been for almost 3 years now. The quality and sound and battery life make those long days on the open road much more enjoyable. Their latest headset, the G16, is designed to make group rides much better with a 16-rider comm system, Bluetooth 5.0, music sharing, and fast USB-C charging. Among the many things Lexan does for our moto community, they also offer the absolute best customer service you could ask for. Check out lexan-moto.com to find out what model suits your needs, and drop the FastLife offer code at checkout to save yourself 15%. And lastly, give these guys a follow on Instagram at Lexan Moto. S&S has been providing the motorcycle industry with top-notch, high-performance products since 1958. From their exhaust systems to their air cleaners and everything in between, S&S strives to create high-quality and reliable products that will bring out the power and torque of your engine. From the drag strip to the flat track, and now even the king of baggers, the S&S products are always on the podium. You can find out more about S&S cycles at sscycle.com and take a peek inside the world with their Performance Times podcast, which is available on all podcast platforms. When it comes to lighting on my motorcycle, for the last year, it's been electric lighting. Their shark tooth headlight is providing both insane visibility and killer curb appeal. I've paired it with their LED turn signals and brake lights, which are much brighter than factory, with great warranties for peace of mind while you ride. NAM's Custom Cycle Products since 1999 has been offering American-made wiring products for all things V-twin, and Badlands for over 30 years has been offering the most reliable and dependable lighting modules in the USA, all backed by lifetime warranties. Find out more about these great companies at namscustomcycleproducts.com, where you can drop the FL2021 offer code, which will save you shipping on orders over $100. Now here's Fish from Alleyway Kustoms. Let's go.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
Fast Life Podcast.
Getting me fired from all kinds
I don't
of
get
things.
fired. Well, cheers, man. Thank you for having me in the shop.
Yeah,
it's
man.
It's really, dude, I could totally do everything I do in the shop. I like my little setup, but you have enough space here to do a setup too, just like I have. Like if I was here, I could put like a studio upstairs just like you got.
Man, I like your setup too, man. It's just, this one's, it's, I guess people would call it modular. You can kind of do anything in this room, but it also works for the climate and the whatever seasons we get in Florida. Where
what's the swing? How high and how low does it get
in temperature?
Yeah,
or in humidity?
Both.
It's always pretty much humid until fall.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but the temperature here, we just got done having it be close to 100.
Damn.
On a regular.
Damn, it's like 60s right now, like
this
upper
is,
60s.
This is as good as it gets here. Before it gets, we're from being a Floridian, when it's 40 out, that's cold for me.
Yeah.
But you can plan. I built it out where you can plan your days. Like in the summer, in the mornings, I'll go out there and get whatever non-air conditioned work done.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the afternoons, come in here and work in the AC. And then if I'm shooting, you know, rounds of paint,
yeah,
you can just jump in there and sweat it out for however long you're going to be in the booth, 10 minutes or something, you know.
Once I realized how much an AC unit really costs, it's not that expensive.
No.
It's just like one of those like purchases where it's like, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 grand, depending on who's doing it and what setup you get. But it's like that thing. It's like paying your taxes.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like you need it done and it will help you out so much, but it's not like a shiny new motor or a shiny new tool system that you can go work with. It's just like this.
Yeah.
It's like buying a mattress is what it's like in life.
Yep. Once that unit right there was $500 and it's an AC and heat unit. I didn't expect it for it to last 3 years. The way that thing runs, sometimes it runs just constantly. But it gets you those extra hours in a day. The old shop, I didn't have anything, and man, I think I heard you talk about it before, where sometimes it's just too damn hot to concentrate.
Yeah, there would be days before I had the AC at the shop. I would show up early like you do, and then by the time 11, I'd have to finally open the doors just to let some kind of ventilation come through, and then from that point on, I just had to take my shirt off and carry a sweat rag.
Yeah,
and it was always a nightmare. Like I hated painting without a shirt on because you just feel like this isn't responsible. You know what I mean?
Clear coat on the chest hair.
Yeah, exactly. You're like peeling it off and shit. It's a very. It just doesn't feel responsible, and as a almost 40-year-old, I feel like that's not a wise thing to do. So
yeah.
But no, like it can really just throw you off because you're dripping sweat onto your work, or having to wipe it off with your arms and things like that. It just constantly takes your mind off of the.
I didn't realize, like in here I can do tape layout and keep my hands dry. That's
a big thing.
Yeah. And not just because you're wax and grease removing them every however 15 minutes, but it's right and it's sterile and it's clean and you can really manage all of that, where you know how it is. You have full tape day.
Yeah, exactly.
In one stage.
What happened for me, I don't know what it is, but every 30 or 40 minutes, I got to give my hands a thinner bath, which I know is not good for me. But it's the only thing that'll dry out my hands. That way, when I'm laying out tape, I don't have like a streak of whatever substance I'm secreting out of my fucking skin.
Right.
That will cause paint issues later on.
Sweating out beers from the night before.
Exactly. So it's, I mean, it sucks, but with the AC, I don't really have that issue anymore, but now I get like this different kind of film that kind of comes out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you start at the beginning of that, when you're supposed to have wax and grease removed everything, and then you're laying some greasy ass fingers all over everything.
Yeah. Taco Tuesdays always fuck me.
Right. No, man, I'm glad you made it by.
Yeah. We did the Smoky Mountain tour, and I was very torn about doing this trip, this camp out trip. I knew I didn't want to ride, man. I've already ridden so much this year that I really feel like I'm that meter is full, and I needed to take a break from riding and focus on all the other aspects of my work, from the paint, the podcast, the photography, shit like that. And I felt like this trip could be a good opportunity to just load up the truck with photography equipment, the podcast equipment, and just take it, and then do the partying and all the drinking with all the homies down there. But as soon as that's done, then I can go to Tampa, knock out some podcasts, and then run around and just be a little more responsible, if you will. Well,
yeah, but then you're still dabbling in all the areas you feel like have been not getting the love.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, for sure, I go to California at least once a year to do podcasts, right? And And I mean, yeah, it's Florida. It's like I've known you for a year now. You know, almost a month. It'll be a year. It's our anniversary next month.
Yeah, it is.
But as I meet more people in Florida, like, then it gives me more of a, I can come here and knock out more than one and justify the gas and hotels and things like that. You know what I mean? Yeah, man.
Florida's got a lot of bike builders and enthusiasts, and I didn't really realize that till I jumped into the the builder scene a lot. How many, like, Tampa area has got a ton of chopper builder guys, and well, not just chopper builder guys.
There's a lot of builders, period. Yeah,
there's a lot down there, and man, it's cool. Like some of those guys I've become close friends with, and it's very resourceful. Like Drew from Freak Show Fab that did the grips on the Panhead. We're still going to work together on multiple bikes, and and that guy is a very humble, underrated fabricator. He's a badass, man.
Yeah.
And you don't know that he don't say nothing, he don't care, but
How do you feel like that'll work in the future, though, with everything going to where you have to be the self-promoter and all these other aspects? Like, how do you think it's going to work in years to come when the whole world is doubling down on forms of social media, whether it's the YouTube, the Instagrams, Facebooks, and the people that choose to just like focus on their craft only, what I'm getting at is that we live in a world of self-promotion, not so much people out there looking to promote us.
Yeah.
So I always look at like the 90s and the early 2000s where there was all these magazine companies, all these TV shows, and all these promotion companies looking for talent, right? And now we don't have any of those people.
It's an absolute necessity. I dabbled into it, I guess it was in 2019 when all the People's Champ stuff started, which I've talked to a bunch of guys that were considering entering this year, talking about like what it's all about. And one of the main things that it teaches you, indirectly, is that you have to promote. You have to promote yourself because of the competition, but in the long term, it will give you choices on what, like with us, we have multiple divisions of what can be done here, and with up and down of the what you may or may not be doing in the industry, you just got to pick your focus for that year, that 18 months or whatever, and it's gonna, I think long term, it's going to be up to people to promote how they're going to make money. And what their business needs to focus on for them to make money at one time or another. Right now, and in our business here, paint is what makes a ton of money. Building bikes, we all know, don't make a ton of money, but a lot of people can do maintenance stuff. We're not really set up to do that, but so I focused on, we recently set up an online store, where all of our merchandise, we started with merchandise, and then I did some paint promotion stuff on there, just so, picking where the focus is at, but try to get that stuff to work for you, I think, is a big thing. Have something else working on making you money other than your hours you put in the day, because we all know as business owners, there's 3 hours that's managing yourself.
That's for sure. And
then probably some time, if you're like me, some time that you didn't spend on balancing books and all the stuff that you hate, and instead of just coming in and working.
And then there's still that aspect of trying to turn on the creativity. Like there's so many aspects to like what you do, even from the bike building and to the paint work and the seats and stuff like that. It's like everything has to start with some kind of design that you have to come up with, whether you choose to do it on paper or keep it in your head. Like that design aspect, and the reason I'm bringing this up right now is because I had another knockoff on one of my paint jobs today, and it doesn't bother me that someone knocked it off, right? So I've totally done that in my career. I've totally been that young guy that re-airbrushed an OG Abel fucking picture that he did on a T-shirt. Right. I've done that, but as a professional, like anytime I feel like I've gained a perspective from another painter or builder, I always come out the gate swinging with, this was inspired by.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
That way, I'm a little humiliated that I couldn't come up with this on my own. But I was so inspired by this person's craft that I wanted to find a way to, as a customer of it, I wanted to bring it into my tool.
It's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's the right thing to do. That's funny you said that. I found out today, well, something was brought to my attention that the paint job was copied, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I made it.
Exactly. I mean,
Wow.
that's really what it feels like, you know. And I was looking at this bike, and it was from Germany, and I guess the repost page posted it, and I was scrolling down Instagram. I saw this. I think it was a Dyna, and I was like, man, that really looks like my style, you know, because like we all have our styles, right? And I think that we get to a point where we're like, you kind of recognize it. I mean, I've seen my style so much because I created it. I've seen it on the drawings and everything, and I'm like, and those are the colors I would have used on it. And I'm like, what bike is that? And then it was a carousel photo. So I scrolled through, and then I saw he had a Simpson helmet. I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely that's not the same customer paint job, but it's another helmet that also is a completely direct ripoff. And I'm like, it's not bad. It's not bad work. It looks like quality work online, and it blows my mind that what I understand and what I'm trying to get at is that there's two parts to the being a custom painter or a builder. There is the idea and creativity side of it, and there's the technical execution side of it. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people can get the execution side of it, but they don't have creativity. They don't have ideas. They don't have the ability to design something. They don't have an identity yet, and they lean towards people like yourself and even maybe myself in times where they just word like line for line. It's like that. Remember when the Challenger came out and they had those memes that were like, Harley was like, dude, change it a little bit. So like you copied me, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think that's, and you know this since you tattooed, it's what I was explained to, having never been a tattoo artist or a tattooer, is the difference between a tattoo artist and a tattooer. Yeah. You know, where a tattooer wouldn't have the ability to come up with his own art. Yeah. You know, and it's, hey, I'm with you, man. But
that's the exact analogy that I had in my head. I was like, did that shop or that painter, they just have like my Instagram on the fucking wall, and the customers come in like, yeah, I want that helmet and that paint job and those colors. And it's like, trust me, I know I sound like I'm mad right now, but I'm not mad. I'm disappointed in a talented artist that should have tried to at least manipulate it to look like his own thing instead of a direct line for line copy.
Well, and when you're working with a canvas that's a helmet with body lines in it that are very specific, and if you're going to try to replicate those panels, you don't have much wiggle room to go in other directions.
But I mean, like I 100%, I can look at something you did paint wise, something fucking everybody else does paint wise, and I can go, man, the way you pulled that line across the side of that tank, man, I can zone in and tunnel vision on that one specific thing that's giving me this like weird emotion, and I can take that and build an entire new thing that's mine off of one line that you did.
True inspiration.
Yeah.
From
and that's why
stuff.
I feel like it's always fair to show, to just tell the people to inspire you, because to me that's the most professional thing to do, is to not take credit for somebody else's work, but also not be so not be, I don't know what the word is, you don't want to be to the point where you can't be honest with the world and yourself that I didn't create this, but I did do this. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm torn and have been for a series of probably I don't know, about 8 months. I have a couple paint jobs that I have to do, and you know, it would be appropriate to do something more along your style or Poland style. Yeah. And I feel like that's what the customer would have wanted in different scenarios. And I'm like, well, this is kind of the style I'm rolling with. Mm-hmm. And I got a message from Poland one time. We've never met face to face, but he direct messaged me on social media and was like, man, I dig your style. It's real deliberate. And it was something like that said. And I was crapping my pants. Like, damn, man,
He hadn't said he liked my style yet, so I'm kind of jealous.
I knew I shouldn't have said anything. I was extremely flattered, but I took that into, and that's not the first person with huge credibility that has said that I don't realize I have a certain style of painting, but it made me not want to vary from that too much unless it's something, that you're doing that's not
I think that the way that styles evolve is when you take the things that inspire you and you add them to your toolbox. You know what I'm saying? So like Jeremy, Lucky Strike's been an influence of mine, Poland, and countless other painters that have come and gone, in the industry over the last 20 years have helped me become my style.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of everybody in me. It's like that whole to raise a painter takes a whole fucking industry, right?
Yeah.
It's like that to raise a kid takes a village or some shit. But I mean, it's one of those deals. It's like, I feel like there's things that you'll do that I wish that my mind could. That's not the right word. I wish I could just be like, I don't need to add 40 more lines to it. I need to be okay with just this nice,
I always
clean,
feel like I'm missing. There should be more. It's too simple. It's too simple. Just leave it alone. That one, I was going to do a bunch of crazy red pinstripe.
Yeah.
Like almost.
The leaf's popping, dude. You got that shit dialed now.
Thanks for the help. For real. But.
It looks really good, though. It's fucking just blinging from over here.
Yeah, man. It, that's just some knockoff leaf.
Yeah, that's what everybody uses that.
But I was going to do a traditional oval panel and add some whatever, just standard red striping in it. And I'm like, leave it alone. It's going to be too busy, and that's not a guy that really told me to go bananas with it, too crazy. And then the drop shading on the flames accidentally turned out real mellow.
Yeah, sometimes I can see it now. Sometimes that's good because overdoing it can kind of overshadow the flame sometimes.
And I didn't know if he was going to be into it anyway. Yeah. So when it turned out like really mellow, I was like, I could always make it thicker, but it's fun stuff though, man. Painting's fun.
It's fun. It's for me. It's like right now I have a lot of projects. So I usually what I'll do like design wise is when I know I have a X amount of projects coming up, I'll force myself to come into the shop. I'll keep everything turned off, my phone off, everything, and I'll just make a nice, comfortable area, and I'll just start sketching. I'll look at my notes for each job, and I'll start sketching something for that customer, and like really putting myself in like almost if that guy was sitting across from me. And sometimes I'll text the customer and be like, hey man, so right here, what were you thinking color wise? Like, would you be okay with this, blah, blah, blah. And try to just fill them out. That way I don't spend, hours and hours coloring things that, they don't like. But I found that for me, sketches, man, they really save my ass, and they make the process and the relationship with the customer, not so nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't have to worry. Like that customer knows what he's getting. Now it's a crayon sketch, and then reality is a much different thing. But at the same time, I'm not like hoping you're gonna like it. Like I'm like, the way I look at it is I guess I have enough confidence that if I think it's gonna be dope, then I know it's gonna be what I do, and if I'm happy with it, I know that they're gonna love it.
Yeah, Yeah, I do a lot of digital renderings on Procreate, not just for an entire bike build, color scheme and stuff like that FXR that I'm doing next year. That'll be a real high end bike. Yeah, we were going back and forth about wheel combinations, and the guy I'm doing the bike for, Jeff Brown, he brought me a frame that he'd already had powder coated gold. And I spent about an hour just taking an FXR, it's an RP, a 90 RP, and just doing some examples of basically what we shouldn't do. Yeah. Because he was really sold on, a standard, Lowrider S color combo. And I'm like, well, we're not really coming out of the box too much here for, he's got a lot of high-end parts.
Yeah.
It's going to be an amazing bike, 120R motor,
Damn.
Baker 6-5. You know, it's going to have all the right components. I'm like, man, it really would be a shame to do this.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't think people realize the power of paint. You know what I mean? I think for the performance side of the industry, whether you're talking FXRs all the way up to baggers, paint is really the only thing that's going to separate you from all the other products that were bought for that bike. Yeah. And so, yeah, there are little fabrication things that, like, I know you can pull off, and you know other builders do as well. But at the end of the day, man, it's a painter's paradise right now. Yeah, you know what I mean. And don't get me wrong, like, I love a really, really clean OG FXR. You know, I do love it. Like, and I can stare at one for hours if it's just like, if it's all just done right. But in the world of social media, bike shows, you know, what people, you know, like maybe the return on investment that that most people are going to want from their bike. I don't think that you can get away with doing a flat black frame and a gloss black tank anymore with some gold wheels. And you know what I mean? You got to.
I mean, for example, my Super Glide, I don't know why I was selling it. I can't remember. I was doing something. I think I was going to do another FXR or something.
Yeah, I feel like I remember you saying something about another bike.
Anyway, it was on eBay, black. And that's got Roland Sands wheels. It's got some components on it. Not all of them, but it's got enough that it's not.
It's dialed in, but you can go another level.
Yeah, you could completely go another level. And I haven't. The reason why I haven't is because my bikes never stick around.
Yeah.
So anyway, to try to justify that to get your, investment paid back for your components, the couple people that I had on the hook for it, they're like, and now I paint it, and I got 3 people interested in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that you were talking about a little bit how, like, well, some of us have the ability to kind of, I mean, it took me a month and a half to paint that bike.
Yeah.
And not probably because I was slacking a little bit and
undecided. It's hard to work for free, period.
Yeah.
You know, like, no matter how you look at it, like, spending a month to work on your own projects or your own bikes, it's like that's you gotta, it's like taking a vacation for the most part. You have to, you're paying all the bills while you're not working on paying jobs, and you know, and as I've gotten older, I have a hard time multitasking. So like if I'm in design phase on this bike, I can't hop on another one. I can do like the things that it doesn't require much thinking, like sanding, base coating, maybe flaking it out and then sitting on the shelf. Right. But I can't start laying out graphics on 2 things at once.
No. And I think I read somewhere that Jesse James made a statement about that, about having 5 projects going on at the same shop and just pick one. Don't get overwhelmed by all the other ones that you feel like they're monkeys on your back. Just focus on one for the amount of time that you can try to allot and manage yourself and whatever. That'll keep you as sane as you're going to be trying to do it. But I get it, man. That's right now I'm in that crunch with trying to get this bike completed for the Wheels of Steel show. And that's another thing that a lot of that, building that panhead for Born Free and People's Champ taught you a lot about being in a bind on a deadline and how to manage that. Like right now, I'm in 4, not crisis mode yet, factors. There's an issue with the castings that I designed. There's an issue with a couple different things. And well, we have a few weeks. We're not in a 2-week yet, but it'll get you where you can balance all that. And otherwise, you'd kind of freak out. Be like, it's never going to happen. Yeah, it's going to fall apart. But
well, the good thing about this year, so you were part of the People's Champ for 2020, and then of course that year went to shit. Yep. Which, how do you feel? Do you feel like it gave you a better opportunity to complete the bike to your liking, or do you feel like it just kind of was a shit show, not on their fault, but just the way the world was?
I mean, in general, it gave us a lot more time for the people in that year to do more stuff. One of the things that I do regret is not having built a frame, being capable to do that. But that was the situation you were in with not knowing whether or not you were going to advance. You weren't going to just go for broke. Yeah. And in my situation, just destroy a perfectly good, pristine 51 frame motor and transmission. But, you know, it was a weird year. You know, but it was good to finally go out to California and just close the deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Close the book. But how was it? How was the whole experience at Cook's Corner, doing the whole deal?
Amazing, overwhelming. You know, the fact that it took so long to happen almost made it heavier. But, you know, we rolled into Cook's Corner and you know, we were kind of second fiddle to this year, which was weird, but nobody really cared. And then there was people that, you know, we went through hell together, not knowing each other, and then we finally got to meet face to face, and it was like we were brothers. For real. Just immediately, boom, like, let's go grab a beer, and man, it's so good to see you guys.
Someone else went through the trenches with you in that process, in a sense.
Yeah. And, you know, so that was really cool as far as the People's Champ stuff, and, you know, this year's builders were great, you know. It was an open invitation to do anything that they had planned to do. But then Born Free Saturday and Sunday, you know, I mean, anybody knows that's been there. Having never been there is an overwhelming event in itself because of just the volume of everything. You know, the bikes, the vendors, you know, it's just, and, you know, we're on the other side of the country. Yeah. You know, so getting out there and, but it was crazy to have, after all of that, see your bike sitting there on the grass. Yeah. You know, and amongst a bunch of other, like, they gave us a really good parking spot for all the bikes to be represented. So we were literally 15 feet away from the builder's corral. So, you know, as far as attendees seeing your bike, and, you know, it was just awesome. You know, it's as best as you could hope it to be, you know, and got to meet a lot of people. A lot of people like the bike, and you know, a lot of people on social media you had indirectly become like kind of friends with, and to connect with all those people and finally meet them face to face there, and, you know, see their bikes, and, you know, just hang out, and it was awesome, man. It's crazy.
I found that part to be hard to do, and not because I don't want to, but because it like when you go to Born Free, especially, that is usually that's like a high school reunion for all 4 years of high school while you were there.
Right.
And it's just like you want to be just approachable, and you want to be like dialed in and ready to go talk to everybody that's like, fuck, man, I'll listen to your podcast. I love your paint. Yeah. You know, I bought that one bike that you painted or whatever. I'm this customer. Yeah. And, man, it's just, it is overwhelming at times. And it's like I want to be there, but sometimes I don't want to be like, I don't want to be there in the sense of the, I feel like if I rub someone the wrong way, you know what I mean? Like when they finally meet somebody they like. Yeah. You know, it's like they say, you know, you don't want to, I hate to say it like that, but like I don't want to meet Jesse James because I know he's an asshole, but in my eyes, he's like, you know, he's one of the guys that got me into this world. So it's like, I'm good with him just staying this idea in my head and not
That's
being.
That's what some people call it. Well, in playing underground music, it's called the Dwight Yoakam. Because I guess he has the reputation of being a total dick to a bunch of people, and you know, and that genre of music, you know, everybody looks up to him, and I guess he crushed a bunch of hero statuses. Yeah. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's really easy to let your guard down and get you know, overwhelmed in the moment of you know, dude, from 10 a.m. till 6, that's a lot of people to meet.
Hell yeah.
That's a lot of conversations. People, a lot of conversations.
How many times did you say the same story twice?
Man, I felt like I could have come up with something better.
You know what's weird about it is like it's like when you put, like for me, I put a lot of my life on the podcast and on social media, right? Yeah. And so when I get asked questions that I've covered in those two areas, and it's not, and I understand that not everybody listens to the podcast, not everybody follows the social media like verbatim, right?
Sure.
But it's like, man, like I just want to give them like a link like, hey man, check this out. I did a whole TED talk on this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, it was kind of cool a couple times when, I like to, when I go to a bike event and we're displaying bikes, I like to go stand by them and just talk to everybody about them.
I mean, that's how I met you. I mean, honestly, I was looking at your bike and then everything kind of came together, because you walked up and said, hey man, you know what I mean? Yeah,
I like to walk up and let people know I appreciate them even, checking it out. And if I'll, usually say, if you've got any questions or anything about what is what, or, I don't know what a person's skill level or involvement might be, but, I talk to everybody on all spectrums, and at Born Free, there was a couple people I just went up and said, hey, where are you from? Hey, my name's Fish, whatever. They're like, oh, we know. They followed everything that happened to the bike.
Yeah. Through
the whole process of People's Champ and from 2019 to 2020. And it was like, whoa, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That like, and knew all about, they weren't lying either.
Yeah.
So that was, super humbling and flattering.
Yeah. When you get those like precise, like questions about like, hey man, when you were dealing with this, like you can tap into a real thought and experience and give that deal. But like what I get a lot is, hey man, so Olins are legends.
Right.
So what do you really feel about the Indian? And I'm like, man, like that's not like my wife's in the car waiting for us to leave.
Right.
Like, bro,
right.
like this, it's not a podcast right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They don't know though.
Nah, it's all good. I was joking around at our bike night. I was telling one of my buddies, it's like, I'm going to try to be nicer to everybody because it's not like I'm trying to be, I love everybody and I try to be as cool and shit, but I have a natural, like my demeanor is kind of like to fuck with people and be kind of a dick, but not, you could definitely take me as a dick, just being a dick, but it's like I grew up playing basketball and talking shit to everybody.
Yeah.
So all my closest friends are guys that as soon as we see each other, we're like fucking romping on each other,
Yeah, man.
I'm literally sitting down with my machinist tomorrow, Sit Down Steve, and Mark Big Trouble. Those are my 3 biggest shit-talking friends.
It'd be a ball buster episode.
Dude, it's all we're going to do is talk shit about each other the entire time. And that's kind of like, that's me 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, to be that way to everybody that walks up to me, you can't really do that because not everybody's going to understand the nuances, if you will.
Yeah. Well, it's personalities and, you're around, like we're talking about at bike shows for a long period of time. Eventually, I certainly act differently around people that I know well enough to take
you kind
maybe
of start
weird humor or something.
Yeah. You start to understand why people do like placard displays with all the information.
Yeah, right.
You're like, hey man, here's all the general information, but if you got questions past this.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's funny. But this year we did a variety of different kinds of bike shows too.
Yeah.
That you kind of forget like a couple that we did earlier in the year in Florida, the 2-day event. The Saturday is very drastically different than the Sunday.
Is that the one that the show you put on?
No, we did. There was one in Sarasota. What one was that? The Chopper Town Live.
Okay. Yeah.
And they had a ton of people they invited out as builders. And Saturday was kind of like the event day, and then Sunday was kind of like the overflow of like a regional ride with all kinds of different bike chapters. And so it was totally different people asking you questions at your booth, and you got to be able to balance all that stuff. And it's cool. I like talking to anybody that's into bikes.
I do too, in certain places.
Right.
I don't know, man. It's really hard. I mean, no matter what it looks like, it's like it's something I got to get over, man. I got to get to the point where I can be more personable to people in person. I think the way that I engage conversation and really can tap into like someone saying, "Oh, Jason's a good dude. I like that guy," is when I get into real conversations with people.
Yeah.
Right. That's really hard to do in a quick setting. So like me, like I'll sit down and we'll have a conversation, and me and you've done this on the phone. we'll talk for an hour or so, right?
Yeah. About
things because we're both passionate about what we're talking about. But and it's not that I wouldn't do that. I've done that with many of my customers as well. But it's like it's a place I got to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It's not a really important topic, but it's just one of those things that like it's one of my flaws that I'm kind of working on.
Man, I got to spend some time with C.T. Newman in California and at the Congregation Show in Charlotte recently. And I met him at Born Free because he's starting to do a bunch of different tools. Yeah. So I bought his exhaust jig, which is, as you would expect, it's freaking awesome and works flawless, and so we kind of hit it off there a little bit. And then at the Congregation Show, he came to the after
party thing,
or maybe it was the one before the show. Anyway, we talked for an hour and a half, and he was going on a lot about how he's, not good with being around. I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn about him personally or anything, but we were talking about it for a while about how it's hard to get used to talking to people a lot about what you do, and and she's a very eccentric person.
I feel like a lot of people when they talk, like if they don't know a lot about you, or they try to find a relative topic or correlation to their life to talk to you about. So it's usually like, my friend made these shirts a long time ago because we're out of Dallas and Texas, and it's like, I don't give a fuck how they do it in California, right? That used to be one of the shirts that my friends.
I had one of those shirts.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so one of those type of things, what it would always be back in the day, especially with lowriders when I was doing those, was we're always like, somebody always knew like another airbrush artist or custom painter or builder from California. So you're constantly having a conversation with this guy or, girl, whatever, about somebody that they know of or know personally, that now you have to just entertain this conversation that
right.
Like, like what, it's like, what do you do? Like, I don't want to be a dick and be like, I don't care.
Yeah.
But
don't really care too much.
But then you get the other ones too, where it's like, I've been a huge contradiction with this, because at times I love hanging out with my core group of friends because I get to not be a bike painter or podcaster or whatever. I'm just a whatever.
Right.
We do talk a lot about the industry, and I vent through my friends a lot. They give me perspectives. They kind of help me navigate it. And I always would tell them, I was like, man, I just hate when people walk up to me and want to talk about the bikes. And I'm like, I do this. I'm the same way when I walk up to somebody that I don't know how to like engage the first, like take the first step to a conversation. Like I ask awkward questions that I'm even awkward asking, but I'm like, I don't know what else to relate to this dude with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if I walked up to Jesse James, I'd probably say some shit or ask him some shit and be just as annoying to him
right.
as I'm explaining that some people can be to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I want to give a shout out to all my close friends. They take a beating about building motorcycles and painting in the business, man. But you don't ever have anybody else to talk to about it, and it's a weird. Yeah. That's why I think that, I can say from having met so many people this year that I consider my friends.
Yeah.
You bond really quick when you have those
common struggle.
Yeah, it's a common struggle. It's a lot of the same kind of issues, that you deal with on a daily basis, and that's why we get locked in the phone for hour-long conversations. Where I don't know too many people in the industry. When I was just talking with Drew from Freak Chef Fab the other day, we're making a plan on how to design the grips, and we might do some inlays on the cast foot pegs and some different stuff. We're just trying to coordinate that with the availability that's going on. And he calls me, and the first thing he says to me, I know we talk a while. I'm going to try not to make this a long one. And we both start laughing, and guess what? It was 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And we tried to make it short, but it's because we're talking about the same kind of stuff,
Yeah, I mean, there's so many aspects, and I know that people who listen to this podcast probably think I'm always attacking customers. But it's more of a perspective. Like, when people listen to this podcast and we talk to other painters and builders and myself, like you're getting the perspective of what it's like to be on this side of the customer relationship, you know. And at times, you know, we always shout out to those badass customers that are coming to us for our creative art, that want our style, that want our specific thing. And then we, you know, always talk shit about those ones that are just nightmares. Yeah. It's not that they're bad people. It's just that they're wired a certain way that their personality and their needs as a person, we just can't facilitate.
There's certain people that can't get exposed to the process either. Yeah. Whether it's, you know, fabricating and designing an entire bike or just a paint job. You know, I've sent a couple different customers pictures of, like, I don't know, the beginnings of a metal flake process, and they're like, hell yeah, is it still going to be rough when it's done? It's not going to be rough when it's done. I'm like, oh crap, you don't know, man. I thought that you were my buddy Tom. I was saying, you know, mindset wise that, you know, and they're still stoked, but it's true what you're saying, that, you know, we should be thankful for the ones that get it. Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna add to that real quick, but it kind of slipped my mind. But yeah, there's always those things where it's like, it's a very, if I just sold a part, right? Like, you get on my website, you buy this part, and our interaction is through email, and then maybe you have an issue and I get to solve that issue real quick. We're literally spending a very, very small amount of time together, period, right? When you design a bike or design a paint job or do a one-off helmet that's, you know, got, you know, some kind of meaning to you, we're involved with each other. Yeah. We're talking on the phone. We're text messaging. We're going back and forth for days, sometimes weeks and months on end. So the relationship that I have to be able to have with a customer versus the relationship that someone that sold you a product has to have with you,
it's not the same.
Not the same.
Not the same at all, man.
So when I say, like, hey, you might be the best customer in the world when it comes to add to cart, you know what I mean? Right. But when it comes to, hey, let's sit down and go through the creative process and start this relationship and build or paint job, or
it's heavy. It's heavy. It's very involved. But man, isn't that when it's all done? I like to leave, like, we kind of went over, this is the gist of stuff, and then there's a significant time period until the product's completely finished. Then you get to show them. Yeah. And when they freak out and love it, that's a super good feeling. When, you know, somebody's like, man, I'm glad I came to have you do my stuff.
You know what's really weird? I saw, like, over the years, as more of my customers had confidence in me, the less questions they would ask out of, like, fear that is that going to be cool enough for the world? And now it's like, you get these guys that, like, and of course I think, like, taking pictures of things at the right angle to show them, like, how sick this is going to look or whatever, it all helps. But man, I remember those, like, weird questions you'd get, like, I'm fucking stoked, and I send, like, a basic shot of it, and they're like, so what'd you do on the lids? And I'm like, the lids are solid, bro. He's like, oh, well, I thought you were going to do something. It's like, well, if I did, it wouldn't flow with the rest of the bike. So, you know, it's like, if you look at your paint job, like, everything has to be completely graphicked out. Like, I don't think that you're getting, like, the style that I have.
Man, I don't remember. I know when I did Brushmasters 2018, I know I talked with Gene Winfield a little bit about this, you know, fractional proportions on stuff. And that's where I met, you know, Jeremy from Lucky Strike and Ron Fleener and
Boosted Brad was there too, right?
Yeah, that's the very first time we met, and we're doing the class together and hanging out. And, you know, I was trying to absorb a lot of stuff. I think I spent a lot of time talking to Mike Ramirez, Buck Wild too, about so I don't know exactly. I think it was a culmination of everyone, you know, talking about the proportions of paint color. Yeah. And balance. You know, balance and stuff like that. And, you know, it seems like you get into that a lot with the people that don't know, and, you know, you're like, man, 10%, 20%, you know, primary color, secondary color, you have an accent color. Yeah. And if you overdo the accent color more than the secondary color, it's not going to be a secondary color anymore, and you're going to have more purple over your gold, or
Yeah.
whatever.
At the end of the day, it's how it all balances together is the thing. I mean, you have a balance of graphics and you have a balance of color. So if you look at a bike, you know, if like say if you're doing a chopper, I think you kind of you have less color on the bike than if you were doing a road glide, right? Or a full fairing RT or something like that. So when you have a full fairing RT or road glide, you have to balance out the graphic flow and how you don't want the fairing to be busier than the bag. Mm-hmm. You don't want the tank to be busier than the other. It's all got to be a balance. And
which is difficult to do with improportionately sized components.
They don't touch each other. They don't line up. You have to kind of look at it like I like to look at my paint jobs like like maybe puzzle's not the word. To me, it's not about how much things got wild shit on it. It's about how well it looks. It's all about balance. It's all flow, right? Yep. And I know that flow is part of what stance is. It's part of like the balance of everything that looks good. The Fibonacci sequence, man. The way things kind of come together and draw your eyes to the motor. You know, when I see the bikes that you build, like you find a way to balance the color with the finishes that work out well. And that's one thing that I think painters / builders always do well. Joe Martin was good at that shit. Even though his bikes are way out of the realm of what we're into these days, his ability to bring like finishes, colors, and design together is second to none.
I completely agree. It's, you know, it was a style of bike that was popular at that time period, but what you're saying is true, that the balance of all of it worked really well together.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I mean,
you could say that about Billy Lane with his style back in the day. I mean, he didn't do the paint work, but you know, those older chopper builders that we could reference, like Indian Larry and Billy Lane and a plethora of others, they just, when I think of masters, I think of masters of balance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Of taking all the aspects and aesthetics of a build, and it all works together well.
I think Joe Richardson did a lot of Billy's early bikes, and then I don't know Robert Pradke personally, but I know he did a bunch of Indian Larry stuff and some of Billy's stuff from what I understand. But those guys were masters of, you know, I also understood that it really wasn't a lot of, let's do one that's blue.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot of input from the quote chopper builder.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of do your thing. We like this and we like that. And man, to have all that work together with that little tiny bit of input, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a good balance of a relationship between a builder and a painter and the other skills that are involved with creating a bike build, you know?
Yeah, that's part of how I'm cheating, having all of that control.
Yeah.
And something is I can fudge things differently one way or the other. And as long as 80% of it's flowing good.
When you're painting a bike for another builder and you just, you know, as somebody that can kind of build a bike, do you ever get to that point where you're like, man, like this dude's just fucking throwing this badass build down the drain with his ideas over there? Maybe not to that extent, but just like you
during consultations, it's went like that. Well, and you know, this year I talked to some other builders about painting their bikes, and you know, we ended up not doing them. A couple of different people back in the Tampa area, and I'm kind of glad because I don't know how many paint jobs I'm going to do for other builders at this juncture.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Certainly going to paint a bunch of bikes, but right now there's some signature things that I'm saving for the small amount of bikes that we're going to do annually, and that's going to be the leather work and upholstery stuff, and some of the super crazy signature paint.
If you look at your body of work, like you can pump out tons and tons and tons of mediocre paint jobs or bike builds and just kind of go that route, or you can kind of take the route of like I'm building a legacy of designs and bikes and stuff that I want to be in my eulogy or whatever, you know what I'm saying, like things that you want to be able to stand behind for the rest of your life and be proud of, and not just like, oh, well, that one I needed to pay rent that month, Yeah,
and it's not I don't know, to come off weird about it, to make it like it's anything secretive, but there's only so many that we're going to do annually, and I want those to shine as, I mean,
you want them to work for you in every way possible.
You feel like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I don't have that many great ideas. So maybe,
you don't want to waste one.
Hell, if there is any of them, but I don't know about, I guess that's just where the time's being focused.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I mean, with you're kind of the same boat as I am with the other areas that you work in. I mean, with the actual fabrication, the seat making, and just the general art that you create. So being pulled in all those different directions means that you have less time to focus on one. So you want to make sure that every area you're working on is like the best of that ability, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's starting to get, and I'm seeing it over this past couple of weeks for the first time doing, the bike that we're doing for Lakeland isn't a super over the top. It's a very simple bike, but that's how Chris Rosenberg wanted his bike. Yeah. By design. So it was almost challenging to do something super simple and make it super slick. So, we're hiding a lot of stuff, and all the electronics are going to be hidden in between the gas tanks. So
it's a challenge, making it all work.
Yeah. And in getting the bike together, coming down to a crunch time, I'm starting to kind of feel like we do in one morning / afternoon. I'm working on a paint design, and then TIG welding some stainless handlebars that can't warp, twist, or be off at all. And then it's like a series of kind of complicated things going on all in the same day, and I've been leaving here pretty taxed. Just like that's a lot of thinking in one day.
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. I've actually I'm getting to the point myself where I try to just shove one high focusing, high CPU usage task per day. Meaning, like, if I'm going to draw today, I'm in draw mode. You know what I mean? So all day I'm doing is drawing. Yeah. And it's awesome because when I get to draw all day, I get to go to work in nice clothes. Right. Nice, comfortable clothes, with clean shoes that I just feel good in. I feel good in nice clothes instead of like the Dickies with like the matted down spot where the fiberglass I dripped on there and fucking, you know what I mean? Like I just feel good. And so I'm comfortable. And then the days that I know that I'm airbrushing, like if I'm doing a portrait on a helmet, I can do it in half a day and do something else. But instead of burdening myself with that responsibility of something else to do, I just like alleviate it by saying, look, all you got to do today is fucking kill this portrait. Yep. Just do that. If you get this done, it's going to be, you're not rushing yourself. You're going to put out the best thing that you possibly can, and you can walk away proud of it. And then tomorrow, tackle that job. And I feel like the one thing that as growing, I've had to learn, and it's the only thing I could say that has really taken my paint jobs from where it was to where it is and where it will be, is patience. Yeah. And learning how to not rush myself to do so many things, and learning how to say no to things that is going to put me in binds to where I can't produce the type of work I can. Yeah. I recently, about mid-year, tried to structure the business and my days to where I do a lot of stuff that works off of an hourly rate, but sometimes on long-term projects I cap that at a daily minimum, just because it would just get outrageous financially for some customers. And I decided to try to set a goal where I might be at the shop for 8 hours, but I have 5 focal hours that's what I'm getting paid on. Yeah. And that's like what you're talking about with like, that's what you're committed to, your total focus. And I feel like, that's where I would get the best work and product for the customer and all that stuff. And it's helped a ton. Yeah. I started kind of adopting this idea through that whole concept of, the 10,000 hour concept of like your skill sets and shit. Right. And then this other concept, and I was going down after Sturgis every year, I go through it's like a post-Sturgis depression, if you will. Like, like I don't know what's next, am I worthy? Just a lot of questions. And I got stuck in this YouTube algorithm of like self-help, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, I started looking into the whole dopamine stuff and like, you know, trying not to be so addicted to the phone aspect, not just social media, but just the phone in general.
Right.
And it took me down a path of like, you know, if you want to get good at something, if you have 10 hours, you can spread that through 10 different things or spend 10 hours on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I'm trying to hone in that same focus and be like, okay, well, I need to work on my pinstriping. I need to find a way to spend a day working on every aspect of pinstriping that I feel like I'm lacking, and just spend the whole day on it.
Yeah.
Instead of procrastinating it and then trying to fit it in at the end of the day, if I just create a whole day and I'm, you know, being hard on myself, being disciplined and saying, look, today you're not making any money today. This is your day off. You're coming in and you're fucking getting that part down.
Yep.
You're figuring out line weight. You're gonna finally work with one shot and learn how to use that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like all these different things that like.
I tell you what, I'll show you how to use one shot better. Not that I'm a big expert, and you show me how to use the House of Color stuff because I can't get that figured out right.
Yeah. It's such a like two different worlds. You know, like it's so different, but. I don't know, man. It's a stuff. That's what's crazy about paint, man. There's just so many. I felt like back in the heyday of the choppers, you could be a pinstriper only, or graphic only, or airbrush only. But nowadays, it's like you really can't. You know what I mean? You got to be a jack of all trades in this industry to kind of to ensure your, you know, just your livelihood in a sense. And I don't know how. And I'm not saying how because they're not great. I just don't know how like the airbrush only guys have been able to survive and stay stoked about the projects. You know, if you're a bike guy but no airbrushes on bikes, now you're fucking airbrushing, you know, mailboxes. Like, I mean, is that I don't know.
And most airbrush artists are amazing.
Yeah.
You know, they should be getting paid. I'm blown away by it. I can't airbrush. You know,
it's to me, man. I feel like it's such a. I hate to say dying industry. I think it's an industry of people that are stoked to do it and get there. But I think that everybody, once they get to the top or close to it, there's no incentive. There's no pot of gold at the end of that rainbow.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
It seems like, you know, that a lot of people that I consider established in the paint industry talk a lot about. Whenever they create something that you see and you're like, wow, man, look at all that, for example, airbrush work or whatever. They're like, yeah, well, you know, that's something that I did on my time for myself to create something extravagant and not something they were, you know, had customers lined up to pay. Yeah. And that's a little discouraging.
It's probably the same thing. Like if you're building a bike and you start focusing on all these little details that have hours and hours that you can't charge the customer for.
Well, I have price points for all that. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that was supposed to happen this year coming up is I was supposed to build another bike, the equivalent of Francine for a customer. Yeah. And I was pursued not pursued as much as we talked about. We're in the same events. Yeah. And, you know, we sat down and talked about some things. And I was like, well, for example, this is what I would sell Francine for. Mm-hmm. You know, this is what I would ask for it. This is what I would take for it. And that's because I have so many hours of hand making everything. Yeah. So that's an idea of where you can get on where you would be at with some stuff. And then there's other bikes that don't get that much attention, but man, it's hard to get paid for that stuff. Yeah.
You know, the other thing I've noticed about like my career, and maybe this will kind of relate to you in a sense, is it's almost like the bigger the name becomes, the easier it is to command the price, and people question it less. You know what I mean? It's kind of. I mean, I know it's always been a thing, but it's like the work could be there. It's like, bro, like this is high quality, but then you can have a fraction of that quality with a bigger name on it, and they wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It, you know, I've been fortunate to get paid really well, you know, recently for some stuff. And I'm very grateful for it, but it's weird,
It's weird, yeah.
It's weird.
I mean, I've seen painters that I think are the fucking best things since sliced bread. And then when I finally get to talk to them or know them and I find out what they're charging, I'm like, dude, you're cutting your own throat, man.
Yeah.
Like, you could be that quality, that style, that design, your ability, you need to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are scared to assert the prices that they deserve. A lot of people are scared to walk away too.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that my grandfather was always a, restoring cars, building shit, taking care of things. And he was always, when it came down to how much do you want for this, he just would always kind of, oh man, just give me $20.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that's $120 worth of work,
Yeah. I mean, I like I started saying a little bit earlier this year, I started kind of standing on some prices a little bit because what I thought the shop minimum was here, and it's not an enormous amount of overhead, but it's not, you come here and you expect stuff to be professional. I try to, handle stuff that way, and it turns out it wasn't quite as much as it should have been.
Yeah.
And I had to bump it up a little bit, and I was really scared to do it.
Yeah.
But, people, the right people stuck around.
Yeah, exactly.
But also May, June, and July, I worked 72-hour work weeks. We all been there, but you don't even, it's almost like I didn't even realize what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, when things are flowing though, like you're in that flow state of getting work done,
going and getting it.
Dude, don't stop it. Just keep
great.
it going, because
Great, man.
once you get out of that groove, man, sometimes it's hard to get back to it real quick.
Yeah, man.
Let me piss real quick. Hold on. Much needed.
Feel a lot better now.
So how was, like I said, you've been doing the show circuit all year. You know what I mean? How has that been with your experience? Like, was that your first Born Free experience as a whole?
Yeah, that was the first time doing Born Free, and but we kind of hit the ground running after the Wheels of Steel show last December was kind of the big kickoff, and then there was that kind of opened the window to a lot of opportunities. And man, I met a lot of people real quick, and got invited to just
a lot of shit. I remember
be all over the place.
We did the podcast earlier this year when you came to the Dallas. Yeah, you were talking about like you just had like this overabundance of opportunity to go here and there and show it this and do that.
Man, it could have been every other weekend.
Yeah,
easily. I mean, so to try to find a balance in that, there's a lot of different kinds of shows, like I was saying.
Yeah.
The Florida shows are good. The Bike Week shows were great. Putting on our own Bike Week show was also surreal that happened that quick in a 3-month time period.
How was the whole situation? I thought I was making I thought I wasn't going to miss shit in Daytona this year.
Well, man, I spent a lot of time in Daytona partying and having a good time down there and being a reformed partier. I had to, find relevance with Daytona. Again, I don't mean to sound, bad about it, but from a builder's perspective and a business perspective, to pick some shows to go to that would really do you well to be there all day. And when I'm at those shows, we like to work. Yeah. We like to talk to everybody. In my opinion, that's your window. That 12 hours you're there, those people will not be there when you're back at the shop the next day or wherever you're at. So I want to take advantage of as much of that as possible. But, Daytona was really good. The thing about Daytona is I remember when, there was one chopper show that went on. That was Willie's. Yeah. And it wasn't like as crazy. At the beginning of that stuff, that was a backyard barbecue. Mm-hmm. And there's 24 people there. We all knew each other. Yeah. And Willie just did it to just show appreciation to get people over to get tattooed. Hang out. And it was a very small community to see how far that's grown in 20 years. Mm-hmm. When I saw Roadside Marty at the Cycle Source show, he's like, man, you realize that we've known each other for over 20 years? Yeah. I'm like, man, I didn't really think of it that way, and we were shooting the shit amongst some other mutual friends, and it's a really, the gathering is better than I think it's ever been.
Yeah.
And there's, between the chopper genre and the performance bike genre is doing its whole other thing where, it has multiple shows now.
Yeah. Which
is rad. And
yeah, it's almost like maybe it's like what I like to think, and this is more of a fantasy in my head, but I like to think that it's kind of like a passing of the torch, like as scenes change. I mean, obviously the pockets of things like the choppers have always been around. Mm-hmm. But like when you go to Sturgis, like you see the bikes that are rolling down the street evolve into different styles. Like you've seen them evolve from fat tire choppers to big wheel baggers.
Yep.
And now you're starting to see it kind of like go into the performance bike stuff. You've seen a lot more groups of younger guys on dynas with T-bars and fucking vests and shit like that. You know what I mean?
Man, it's great, and not to be an old geezer about it or anything, but this year I turned 50, and I've been into Harleys exclusively for 25 years, since 1996. Yeah. And when me and my two other friends got into Harleys, there was no young people.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, obviously there was young people, like you're saying, pockets here and there. And Jacksonville's a big town, so there was a couple guys on the west side, and where we were from the beach, there wasn't anyone else that got into that, and it really wasn't accepted by anyone of my age now and a little bit younger. It'd be like, what are you doing here, you old punk kid? And to see that, this generation of people getting into Harleys, it's accepted, and they can make friends real quick, and they can get a Sportster or a Dyna and, find their scene. Man, that's cool. That's super cool, because you either pick the chopper scene and figured out how to get some hunk of crap you could barely get together a couple $1,000s to buy, much less in order to maintain that. You had to go get your balls busted by some bike shop that really, they'd take your money, but they weren't, we were kind of fortunate. We got welcomed in a little bit, but not initially.
Yeah.
So to see all that going on, man, it's super, super cool, but it's definitely getting back to the Daytona thing and the bike scene and shows in general, to have multiple ones and all these people involved, man. How awesome is that? Like, this year coming up, we're trying to figure out if we're going to do our bike show again. And, when we were trying to schedule it last year, it's like, man, we're lucky that some COVID stuff's kind of making this a little bit wacky, because we have an open Saturday to do this. And this year, we might not have a day where we're not stepping on another event's toes.
Yeah.
Out of respect, you wouldn't want to do that anyway, but also for attendance, you wouldn't want to be in competition with something else. And, to see it come so far after 20 plus years, man, that's rad.
Yeah.
That's rad that you don't have to go to Froggy's and, get ball busted by some, people, whatever,
From what it looked like, it seems like the stunt riders last year took over Froggy's. And that was their bar.
Right.
It's like that whole "I'm the captain now" shit.
Yeah, man.
But
yeah,
that was the problem. That was one of the biggest issues with Sturgis. With we're in this like transitional period where a lot of shows are dying, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean they're kind of phasing out in a sense. And a lot of people are trying things. You got different cities in Sturgis battling for, hey, bring your show to our town. We won't charge you so much money for taxes to be here.
Yeah.
So you're getting a lot of pull in different directions. And, I know that V-Twin Visionary went to Deadwood this year. Obviously Torque was at, was it Kickstands Campground or something like that? It was like right there at the old Full Throttle spot.
Right.
And, it's just kind of hard to figure out, where to be. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I can imagine Daytona's just as wild. And I mean, the Hardcore Cycle Show is, I haven't been to one yet, but I feel like that's kind of like the pinnacle right now with like the performance bikes, right? And then Willie's, I've never been to Willie's Chopper Show either, so I don't know if that's kind of the pinnacle of
It's definitely the
where are the trophies for those people that are into trophies? What are the must take home trophies if you're building a bike?
man. That's the crazy thing is that for years it was the Rat's Hole show in Daytona. This year, I mean, I entered Francine in the Pirouette's paint show.
Yeah, and
which was a super cool experience because, well, the hardcore show was the same day.
Yeah.
So I was already committed to do the Pirouette show. We showed up, parked Francine and the bike that I built for Chris Rosenberg, his swing arm root beer shovel head, parked, and we were like, hey, we got to go over to the dealership and say hey to everybody because we're trying to be in two places at once. And when we left, there was probably 6 choppers there. And it was pretty early, Mm-hmm. We came back at about 1 o'clock or whatever, and it was all big wheel baggers.
Yeah.
Like slammed crazy with ridiculously good paint jobs, And I immediately felt like, shit, man.
I'll talk the shit, but
no,
yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I feel like, I feel like I love Dave and Jody. They're the shit, but I feel like their show has turned into a hamster show, and I feel like it's hard for. I don't know. I feel like when you join that club, maybe you should, like since you're part of the custom motorcycle culture, like it's almost like competing with your customers. Even though I know that everybody that's a hamster is not a custom builder, but technically to be a hamster, you have to custom build a frame off chopper. So I don't really know how this works, but I learned from the guy I learned how to paint from that you don't want to compete with your customers in bike shows, right? So,
well, you could equate that with the.
But it depends on what kind of show it is. If it's a invited builder type thing, if you're in a class that maybe the average customer that has a bike painted or built by you isn't going to be in, then I understand that. But what if a guy brings like you build your bike and then someone has you build the best thing you can next to it? Do you want to compete with that guy in a show?
You shouldn't. In my opinion,
yeah.
You shouldn't. But maybe that's along the lines of, here's how I feel about, Hawk Lachey and I hit it off in Tennessee because he's a super nice guy. He walked up to me and, man, I could still get all weird about it. He walked up and he said, Orange Panhead, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know who that was.
Yeah.
And I you put 2 and 2 together because he's wearing his shirt, and I was like, Hawk? And I was like, dude, I can't even believe you said that about my motorcycle. Like, thank you so much. And he's like, let's get a beer. It's like, yeah. And we spent some time together there. And then when I saw him again at Born Free, and my point is meeting him and meeting CT Newman, those guys' build level is on such an extreme level that I kind of said, like, why don't they just do the Tony Hawk thing? Like, you just do demos.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to come here and skate and be part of the competition because you've won too much, Then I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's not my place to say. It's just my opinion.
Yeah.
That, what would it hurt for, like, obviously, we'll just display these 2 bikes, however that works out financially or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then you give someone else an opportunity to maybe receive some credit for as hard as they work for something, because it's hard to keep up, but it could be the same thing like what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, I think I was talking about this on a Patreon podcast we were doing the other day, and I was like, wouldn't it suck to be like one of the most badass basketball players ever, but then you just happen to start playing when Jordan was in the league?
Right.
And you're just kind of like, oh, fuck me then.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that's cry me a river shit right there. I mean, we could all do that. I think the goal is that sometimes in some worlds, like, you get guys like Hawk Lachey and the type of out of this world shit that he can build, and CT Newman and countless other guys, where you it's like, man, this is the level everybody's going to be at, and I got to get to this level, or these dudes are just some fucking, they're not from this planet. And
dude, I'll tell you about an interaction that I had right after I met Hawk in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. I had met Brock. Well, I met him in Daytona, at that Cycle Source show, which was really strange because, man, we did really well for a minute there. You know, between the the Lakeland show, the Sarasota show we won, Best of Show, and the Bill Dodge Award of Excellence, and then we rolled right into Daytona. And you know, when they pull you up and okay, all you guys need to come up here and everybody's won something, it became a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't mean to sound weird about that or sound like a shithead about it, but you know, we won Best Panhead, and it was like, oh man, all of a sudden, instead of it being a fun experience, it's just like your stomach's turned, you know. But Brock rolled up a couple bikes and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
You know, over the top, you know, and I was just like, oh man, so awesome, you know. And then when I saw him in Tennessee and we met again, and we're standing there, and we had walked away from the Builders Corral, and I had walked up there with Hawk to get a beer, and Brock was like, hey man, you know Hawk? I'm like, you don't? I figured you guys would be like peas in a pod because it's the same like crazy mindset, you know. And I was like, I'm nobody, but I'll introduce you to him, you know.
Yeah.
And so anyway, and there's a whole bunch of builders around, and the three of us sat there, me and Hawk and Brock, having a couple beers, and we started getting into this intense engine building conversation and design conversation, and we didn't realize how long we'd been talking. It was like 45 minutes. Yeah. And Chris came and got me. He's like, hey man, we're gonna walk over here. And I looked around, there was no one else standing around. And I was like, whoa, man.
But that's how you grow. I mean, that's how everybody grows, is conversation. I mean,
yeah,
I can't tell you how many conversations with really awesome painters has helped me get to where I am. You know, it's like without those conversations of just maybe it's like the confirmation bias that I needed. Like, am I doing this right? He's like, yeah, you're doing it right. We all have those problems. Like, yeah. Thank you. I can work through that then. I just thought I was in the wrong path. You
think you're doing something wrong the whole time in the paint world, since you're messing with all the chemicals and you keep getting stumped by something. Yeah.
But I mean, like I think that once you kind of have those kind of talents and those kind of minds, you know, at your disposal to pick their brain here and there, it just opens the toolbox that you have at your disposal to figure out how to do things.
Yeah, and I you know, I wasn't necessarily saying I was on the same level that of mindset of engineering that those guys are, because I mean,
I will say this, and I'll be the one. You don't have to co-sign on this. I think a lot of really, really badass engineers have engineering feats, but they lack the design. They lack flow. They lack stance. I've seen bikes that are just like out of this world with machining and fabrication, but they don't know how to make it work together sometimes. Yeah,
I've seen a ton of them that it's like, man, it's a little bit clunky.
So I think that what I'm trying to get at is, I think that maybe as much as they are on this level, in their eyes, they might look at you like, this dude has a way of pulling everything together that I don't understand. So, you know, it's kind of like not that they would. I'm putting words in their mouth. But.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has their strong points, you know, and it was nice to, you know, be accepted in a different world where that wasn't my strong point. Maybe you know what I mean. But it's been a surreal year this year, getting around, and you know, I'd thought about the California trip a bunch. You're given a lot of time to think about it, and then, you know, just getting there and back with the show bike in the back of your truck, cruise the whole way out there. We basically, I don't know why this was my game plan, but we were going to find roach motels and get the bike out of the back of the truck every night and put it in the room. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that the caliber of you know, neighborhood that hotel is in. You know, it was just a lot of sketchy hotels.
Usually those towns like on I-10 all the way out there and back, you're usually pretty okay if you got like those little horseshoe motels where you can back up right to your.
It wasn't really the motel as much as we had to go get something to eat and go to a gas station, and I'm like, and you know, what we thought would be 13 or 14 hour days were like 19-hour days. So you roll into that motel at 11 o'clock at night, and then you're just trying to go get a Jack in the Box or something. And, we were all like, why are all these people out at this hour? And they're hookers and junkies. They're trying to accost us at
Where are you
the
staying
drive-thru.
at? Like, I mean, you took 10 all the way from Jacksonville to...
So we went all the way to San Antonio the first night, I think. And then we went close to Phoenix, the other side of Phoenix, because we were trying to hook up with Brian.
Okay.
And with Paint Huffer.
Yeah.
But they were in California the same day, and we both had a 7 or 8 hour drive. But I hit him up and I was like, man, just throwing it out there. We're coming through at like 8 o'clock at night.
If it's any consolation, I had to chase that motherfucker too around the first time I went out there. Yeah, it was a shit show. We've since then built a great relationship. But yeah, the first time I rode out there, and he had started hooking me up with Flake, and then I was like, hey man, I'm going to NorCal to drop off a bike paint job, do some podcasts. I could swing through Phoenix. And he's like, well, I'm in Monterey right now. I'm like, well, shit, we'll come through. And then next thing you know, he's like, oh man, I had to run down here to San Diego. I'm like, well, fuck, dude, like I'm not going all the way there.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, we'll catch you on the next one. So
yeah, it was getting late, and I didn't know him well enough to jam him up or anything. But I was like, man, I feel like we need to shake hands or something.
Yeah, no, he's a good dude, man. He's a solid guy. He was a huge help to this podcast, like getting it off the ground and things like that. And I mean, painting up for like when he started like getting to the point where he was doing the paints now, like that's something me and him talked about years ago. And I'm just stoked that he's like growing the Paint Huffer brand, because I'll say it, I've said it since day one. The rest of the paint industry is a joke when it comes to taking care of guys that are pretty much brand ambassadors and influencers for the custom paint industry.
Yeah.
It's a joke, right? And Brian's been the only one that really will go over the top to take care of painters,
Yeah.
And and he generally just is stoked about custom paint. You know what I mean?
I'll say this about, I have lesser companies that would do more. Not that I'm anybody super special, but, and I'm not trying to do an advertisement here, but his flake, I mean, it's the best I've ever used.
Yeah.
It never disappoints. It's like House of Color stuff.
Yeah.
You're like, there you go.
Yeah.
That's the two best products. Don't really need to fudge it.
Yeah.
It does everything. When you stick in the sunlight, it does everything it's supposed to do. It makes us look good.
Yeah. And House of Color, like I said, they've that's the thing about like big companies is they get bought out, they get, sold, they get new owners, they get new management like that. That's the one thing about like larger companies like House of Color and things like that gets kind of thrown to the wayside that we don't think about, because on social media, we're so used to interacting with smaller, Alleyway Kustoms is you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like you have a marketing manager over there.
Right, a big corporate thing.
And you got shareholders to talk to and shit. So like when Ron Fleenor was with House of Color, then when he was with Matrix, he had Matrix going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right? 100%. And then he got traded.
Yeah.
And then that whole program fell apart. And it's like, that world is like so... it's so stressful to like create an idea to take a brand to a new direction, but then you have like all these people that you have to answer to and like prove, even though it's too early to have any kind of proof. It's like, this is a timely thing that we have to create this market, not just throw like, money into it and expect a return on investment that quick. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I'm in 100% agreement with your take on that. Custom painters make them look good, and we don't get tech support, or I mean, even locally with my local paint supplier, I'm constantly like, dude, I know I'm not buying huge volume, but does anybody know what the hell is going on? I'm just trying to buy some, I have my couple different whites, silvers, blacks, and I custom mix everything else, with whatever pearls and stuff. And I'm like, they just change different people. They don't care. I mean, they do deliver.
Yeah,
which is convenient because I need more of me, but
that's kind of the uphill battle. Is it like it's like SEMA's going on right now, and a lot of people are there. A lot of the paint companies just, like I don't know. It's weird. Like, are you on the top of the paint game if you're not at SEMA? Like what?
It's a big showcase.
It's a big showcase. Like I've never got anything from Iwata, but I've probably answered about 2,000 messages asking what kind of airbrushes and paint guns I use.
Nope.
I've Matrix has taken care of me here and there, but I think that all the people that worked at Matrix that I had a relationship with got fired.
Yeah.
And now the new person there doesn't even respond to my messages or tags on Instagram, and it's like, what the fuck's going on? Like I don't understand. Like I don't understand how, like, I would do more in the paint world if I got some kind of reciprocation from these brands.
Yeah.
When I repost, when I paint a helmet and I use House of Color and I use Paint Huffer, and Paint Huffer reshares it and Simpson reshares it, but House of Color acts like I don't like.
Never ever responds.
Never responds. But then they'll post some bullshit. And I'm like, can't just hire me to do your social media.
Yeah, they got the wrong person running the social media. I just went through this with a different corporate company where it's like we had strong disagreements on how they're running their social media. And I'm like, what you're doing doesn't really matter. Not like I'm the biggest expert, but I just been in the trenches trying to get my company from one level to another. Yeah. Mediocre or better, however you want to interpret that, but you're doing it all wrong, and what you're doing does not matter at all. And a lot of people don't get it.
I think that what happens is that these older corporations don't understand social media, and so words like, what was the one I was using? What's that word?
Algorithm's a big one they don't understand.
They don't understand algorithm, but they don't understand like like if I'm a company, if I'm my company, you're Alleyway Kustoms. Hey, Jace, I want to pay you to do all my social media and digital marketing, right? Yeah, we have a package. Do you want the $900 package? You want the $1,200 package? What's
tiers.
The $1,200 package get? Oh, well, we do this, and this. And I'm like, and so what they're going to do is, because doing social media isn't a quick turnaround, it's creating a visual representation of your brand. And sometimes some brands have they just never did it right. They got shitty photos. They haven't found a way to connect with their audience themselves. And so it's more like the goal needs to be as a company to come in and train you on how to bring out what you have that's special in your brand, in your company, and show the world. Yeah. And what tools, like maybe it is finding a photographer or a videographer or somebody to come in and do certain things, or maybe you need to learn how to do the shit yourself. But
whatever your tier of your price point that you want to spend for your advertisement could be, but they could show you how to shine.
Yeah, I feel like with something like House of Color, such an iconic brand in the paint world, that it should have more followers and more fucking engagement than Paint Huffer.
Yeah,
but Paint Huffer does it right.
Yeah, man.
He understands that I have a product, but that product is just a jar until an artist takes it and turns it into art.
Yep.
House of Color has a can with a cool logo that is just a can with a cool logo until one of us takes it and turns it into.
Yeah, I mean, they got it. They're the yellow pages of paint reference, basically, to the point that when I ask a customer, like, well, what do you like? It'd be helpful to see some references of what you think, your vision for your idea is.
Yeah.
A little bit. If this isn't, if you're not telling me, just go for it. And they show me a picture of your paint, Poland's paint, Jeremy's paint, whoever's, and I'm like, well, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to replicate what someone else in the industry is doing. Well, we can combine a whole bunch of different stuff, and then we can do this twist on it.
Yeah.
But they are that ingrained, and
Yeah, that happens. I mean, man. I mean, even today, I still get people that send me pictures of Schultz's work or Valley Customs or name off many really badass painters, and I guess I'm kind of in a unique position because I can't take any more helmets, right? I'm pretty booked until Daytona, so the way I look at it is, if you just sent me 3 images of Valley Customs and, hey, here's Gerald's number, man, hit him up.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, well, you know, I just don't know if I want to send my stuff to California. I was like, well, if you want that look, what's the difference between sending it to Texas and California, man?
Yeah. You're not driving it here.
Yeah. It's like,
Get what you want.
get what you want. Pay for what you want, man. Like, be a man.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, be supportive of, I mean, what are they coming to you for, a bro deal?
Yeah, I
you
don't
could
think.
just get the real deal
Yeah,
from
I
who you
don't
want
know, man.
to have deal it.
I think sometimes people like a personality of another painter, but really want a style of another.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so I could see that, like, maybe, like, put it like this, like, on my social media, on my Instagram, it says email for quotes, right?
Yep.
Now, I do answer DMs whenever I'm available, but I can't tell you how many times I've been on a bike riding across country and someone says, hey, man, how much to paint my helmet? And I'm like, I have a whole, like, highlight story with every question you have.
Right.
All you do is got to look. And then secondly, I lose that. I can't answer it right there on the bike. So when I get to the next gas station, I can't really jump into this conversation at a Love's gas stop in between gas stops.
And hang out for 45 minutes while you're going back and forth with a direct message conversation.
And then they hit me with the questions. When someone hits me with the question marks, I'm done. We're not doing work together. I don't do that shit.
The social media shop that when I finally put up, I just did some references of some paint work, and I just put one price up there.
Yeah.
And just prices starting at whatever.
Yeah.
And that just kind of,
it weeds out a lot.
yeah, you know, I mean, a lot of people don't understand you know, how much I had to enlighten somebody that's in the industry recently, how much it cost, like paint cost, to do a bagger. I'm like, man, I'm trying to work with everybody here, but like, that's a lot of material.
Yeah, and time.
A lot of material, a lot of time, a lot of pieces. That's way worse than painting a Mazda Miata. At least that's a big shell instead of a bunch of little tiny pieces, you know. And it's
what I've dealt with that too with a lot of the bagger guys that are shops that are kind of air quotes transitioning from one scene to this performance bagger scene. And you know, like I said, they hit me up they want this extravagant paint job, and you know, one, I tell them, like, what are you trying to build this for? Because I can't, you know, if you're doing it for Daytona, I have one opening. You want to get on it?
Yeah.
Or no? You're not sure? Okay, well, there's 3 other dudes that said they want it, and one of those deposits drops, the rest are fucked.
Yeah.
Or at least for me, for Daytona, right? Well, then it comes down to where, like, you have these guys that are a big name. Like, now here's the deal. There's a lot of really, really big name builders out there that I would love to do a bike for. But I don't want to, that's like up to me if they hit me up to decide if, you know, is that the bike shop that I would love to have my name on one of their builds? You know, like if Ness hit me up, which we've talked,
Yeah.
if Corey hit me up and said, hey man, I want you to do this bike for Sturgis for us, I'm like, fucking sign me up. I'll come pick it up right now. I'll drive to NorCal.
Right,
that's an
right.
opportunity.
Yeah.
That's a legacy opportunity for me.
Yeah.
But Joe Blow out of fucking Ohio that, you know, won the stereo competition in Sturgis last year, but now wants to get performance baggers.
You don't know how that person's going to represent you.
I don't know how.
One will complement the other.
I don't know how it benefits me to cut you a deal.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is the thing that happened too in the industry that I know people are probably tired of me talking about, but when Instagram came along, it gave a lot of painters the opportunity to be more famous than the builders.
Yep.
Right? So in a lot of aspects, a lot of the builders never like played the Instagram game or the Facebook game. They just did the group chats or the fucking what do you call them? Like they do those Facebook groups and they'd be on there peddling their parts and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's like I mean, Covington Customs is a prime example. That's a fucking gem of a bike builder shop that I was honored to do work for. But I can't tell you how many times like someone's hit me up and go, hey man, who are those guys? Like I didn't know who they were till you painted a bike for them.
Yeah.
Generationally, you know, right now my brand is kind of popular in this generation. So, you know, it's like it's a weird thing. You know what I mean? Like the social media shit.
It definitely has helped blow it up. I mean, I know of Covington because of some stuff, you know, in the late 90s and stuff, but most recently because you were painting some stuff for them, you know. And it's, I mean, with builder circuit stuff, it's really weird. There's like a bunch of different people that do all kinds of different stuff, and how they choose to represent themselves and be in different types of bike shows. And, you know, I mean, there's a completely different type of bike builder at a Born Free show and a congregation show there is at, and that's I did that purposely this year, is to go get in all of them.
Well, if you look at like Chemical Candy Scott, right?
Yeah.
The dude, he was, I probably indirectly learned a lot from him. You know what I mean? Because of the way he operated his business. He was the first guy that I ever was around that actively turned down work all the time.
Yeah.
And just focuses on what his brand is. And by doing so, he eats. He has a good life.
Yeah.
He's not overworked. He's not overstressed.
He's super nice guy.
Super cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
He won't do the fucking podcast because he's an asshole, but he's
a
good dude.
Didn't you say he felt weird about hearing his own voice? Man,
I love him to death, but I got to give him shit because
I met him in California with Jason Ocha.
Yeah.
And
known Jason for a very long time too.
Yeah. And we were like, that was Friday night at the People's Champ deal, and they're like, "Oh, come hang with us." I'm like, "Man, I got some obligations. I gotta, hang with some people." But super nice guys, man. Super nice guys.
Yeah, that's one of the things, man. Dealing with you, like I when I'm at Covington's, when I'm out there working with them, I'm staying with Jerry, and I shut the fuck up. I listen to all the fucking stories that him and his wife have, that Dave have. I'm just soaking up all the knowledge of this industry that they, from their perspective, that I didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that shit. And then at the same time, like they're asking me, like, "Hey, so how do we do this on social media?" Blah blah blah. It's like, I'm not saying that I'm better than any of these other builders. I'm just saying that I use the tools of today better.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough thing to figure out, I mean, Chris helps me out a ton of, with all that stuff, and is responsible for like a lot of the way things go smooth, but at least we're aware. A lot of people aren't even really aware of what they're missing on, and it's not to say that, I'm thankful that I stay busy.
Yeah.
But like you and I spoke earlier this year, and I transitioned into and took some of your advices. Now I stay busy doing what I like to do. Yeah. And what's our, kind of our specialty. And I feel like that I would do better justice to that than something. We're always coming out of the box doing, everybody's done dream catchers and football paint jobs and stuff like that. That's,
Well, I feel like, as someone that consumes a lot of YouTube and a lot of different worlds in YouTube, like a lot of different like things, like from cameras to computers to gaming to, I have a lot of interest in that shit, right? And one thing I noticed a lot of them have is they have like how to start your podcast, how to start your YouTube channel, how to become a photographer, how to do these. And I'm not saying that I have the how to become a custom painter, how to become a custom bike builder, but I feel like there's nobody else saying anything. Nobody else really publicly putting out some type of like, these are some things you will encounter. These are some these are some things you might find to be more helpful for you as an artist to continue to pursue your passion for the creativity side of it and balance the business side of it.
Well, there isn't really, and we become friends, and I'll tell you this is one of the reasons why I started listening to this podcast, is because it does give you all the insight on. There's plenty of your podcasts I've listened to that I'm like, I'm not gonna be into this at all, and I always pick up something that you can take, you know, from whatever walk of life within the industry. That like, oh man, I didn't really think. I'm always like, oh shit, man, I'm glad I listened. You know,
well, I mean, what people are hearing. I mean, I'm getting that tenfold being there, talking to them before and after the podcast. You know, sitting down and seeing, you know, like just sometimes seeing someone's workflow, seeing someone's shop, seeing how everybody does things. Like I feel like I've been just absorbing a lot of knowledge, but I haven't figured out how to regurgitate it properly yet. Like I haven't got my notes down. I haven't got it figured out, but I sat there and listened to Corey and Zach Ness tell me how they restructured their entire brand and business, and finished some of their sentences while they were telling me, because I understand where they were going and what they were trying to do. Yeah. And to the point where they were even asking my advice on some things. And it's like, I probably come off a little preachy or quite preachy on these things, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, there was nobody out there doing anything like this whenever I got into this shit. Nope. You know, like there was no painters, like being honest, like everybody was trying to sell their class. Like, hey man, come be a painter. $550 for the week, and I'll teach you how to do this, and you're going to be a custom painter afterwards. I'm like, hey man, give me $550 and I'll tell you everything you want to know about the business side of it that you're going to have to figure out that a lot of my heroes in the paint world never did. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You know, there's so much stuff that will break you every day with that kind of stuff that, you know, like we're saying, you don't realize that other people are going through it too, with trying to get their shit together to make a business out of it. And it's fucking rad.
Well, if you think about every different way you try to figure out how to solve a problem, once you figure it out, that becomes like the way you do that. And sometimes like, I think that our nature is of running a business, whether it's building bikes or custom painting bikes, or anything with bikes for that matter, that you're making money on it. It's like we're all kind of trained that more is better. I need to touch every bike. The more bikes that have my name on it, the better. And there's truth to that, but the sad truth is that the more you stretch yourself out and wear yourself thin, the less that you're going to be like actually putting quality out, whether it's quality work or quality of life is going to go down. And then you're going to resent motorcycles, which I've seen in so many famous people that I've sat down with in our industry who just resent this shit because they never figured out how to balance it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it takes a lot of hours to get stuff pulled off. Yeah. You know, I mean, it don't get done in a 5-6 hour workday. Yeah. And a lot of what you're doing is problem solving. And you know, it's one thing to watch a YouTube video where, oh, here's how all this laid out. You lay the tape like this, and you lay the candy, blah blah blah. But what do you do when a mistake happens? Yeah. And that's when I started pursuing, like when I went to Brushmasters and, went there with 8 pages of a notebook paper going, why is this happening? Why is that happening? What do I do? You know, and then when I moved over here to the new location and the auto body shops next door, the guy that got me into this building, it was great for the first year that we just bounced off each other. Like, oh man, how are you, dealing with, it's 30 degrees outside. How are you warming your booth up, and how are you doing whatever? And it's when you're sitting there going, man, I just totally fucked up this whole paint job. Yeah. how do you fix it quick? Yeah. And not,
how do you save it, basically?
Yeah. And that's what, no one's telling you.
And that's the thing about it being a small industry, is that there isn't a lot of help, and I know there's a lot of people doing YouTube videos now for custom paint, and I think it's dope. It's good. I think Time Warp Customs is one of them, and some other guys, and it's a good thing to do. But even in those videos, and this isn't a dig at them, there's just a lot more involved in the simplicity that these people are putting out. But at the same time, that start is what everybody that wants to get involved in this, they need to do that first. They need to try that, because like you said, your notebook full of questions are way easier to answer than, hey man, how do I do that? What?
Yeah.
All of it. And I'm like, bro, like,
what are you messing up? What's going good?
yeah,
Like, what do you?
I can't help you because it's too broad of a question. Are you asking me to teach you how to do something I had spent 20 years to learn how to do?
Yeah.
Like, or have you been trying this and you've gathered all the knowledge that's free and available up, and now you're stuck in a few spots? I can help you out in a few spots. I can't help you with the, hey man, where do you get creativity from? I'm like, bro,
Yeah, it's a lot easier
do
to
crack.
do, right? Do some weird shit.
Yeah.
Hey, if weed's your thing, do that. Whatever. I mean, I didn't really realize that. You know, in 2018, when I think I was telling you about off air, when we opened the shop here, and we were just getting just so many people over all the time, and I just tried to keep that into, well, why doesn't everybody just come by on a Saturday? Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of the younger chopper crowd from this area, and then I ended up taking on the apprentice, Jared, at the time, and I didn't realize how that was to work every day. You know, and he would come in after his regular job, but he was here often.
Yeah.
And to work with somebody that I didn't really honestly know if I was qualified.
Yeah, I think
to teach somebody like that.
It's imposter syndrome. I dealt with that too when my buddy Zach was working with me.
Yeah, you know, but he was persistent about, man, I really want to, you know, I think I could learn a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, all right, cool, well, let's work together. And, you know, I did almost a year of like working, and at the same time you're explaining everything you're doing. Mm-hmm. You know, but he also was spending a lot of time away from the shop researching. He would come. I didn't have a problem with doing that, because he would come in going, well, I almost got this. What did I do wrong here?
Yeah.
And that was, you know, from doing, I mean, not, you know, low level machining and stuff like that with that, you know, with that mill and the 3-in-1 machine, or welding, or just fabricating in general. And, you know, like, learning how to weld is one thing. Learning how to fabricate is another thing. Applying it to building a motorcycle is a totally different, you know. When I was learning how to TIG weld, and I had some of these older guys from around here showing me the ropes of different stuff, and then I would watch YouTube videos, and I was trying to kind of piece it all together, and I would watch this guy, and he's like, yeah, well, you really need to be able to weld left-handed.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're welding up or down or whatever, and that all applies when you're tacking bungs onto a frame building a chopper.
Yeah.
It's very easy to say you can do that sitting on a table, but how are you going to hold the bung on the bottom of your down tube?
Yeah.
You can stick a magnet to it, it's going to draw your whole weld, you know, to do the little nuances that make all that stuff happen. And, you know, and it was fun doing the apprenticeship stuff. But it's a lot to teach every day too.
Yeah.
You know, but
yeah, you know, now that I've had an apprentice, like, you know, what's crazy is that, like, my guy, Zach, Lot Lizard, he walked into the shop wanting to know more about custom painting and left being a photographer.
Really?
Yeah. And he's a badass.
I was wondering if he was traveling with you, because I haven't met him, but
No. I mean, this was all 2020. This last year, same thing. Saxon, I think he did the podcast when we were there. Who ran the cameras? I think it was Saxon, right?
I don't know if there was maybe it was Saxon.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I thought it might have just been me and you.
Well, it might have been. But same thing, like, he came in, I mean, his goal always was to dive down the video creativity, and, you know, he wanted to get into video editing and all that type of shit. And thank you. And basically, same thing, like, after being with me for, you know, 9 months, he, you know, he's a photographer now, he's a video guy now, and that's what he wanted to do. I think that being around it every day and being immersed in it, it's like, when I got a shot to work in a custom motorcycle paint shop, I was a car guy. I was an import car guy, which is kind of embarrassing to say around the world of building badass fucking hot rods and all that shit, but that was just my thing. I could afford that. You know what I mean? That was my way of doing shit. But being around bikes all day long and seeing the world and the way when I got that job at what was Air Syndicate at the time, it's now Other Side Customs. When I got that job and they were doing biker build off shit, and all these people, just the way they praised those guys, I was like, I mean, I was coming off working at Walmart as a tire oil change guy, right, where everybody, you're always fucking up. Like, you're always wrong. Like somebody in their fucking dually tried to take their wheel off, and they over tightened their lug nuts or didn't put anti-seize, and now it's my problem to get it off. Yeah, and because now I got to go crazy with it, now Walmart has to take care of it, and now the customer's mad at me, even though I'm saving his ass.
Right.
So I went from an industry where people generally, they didn't want to have to get their oil change or tires done, and they definitely didn't want to have any problems with it. And so when they did, and you're the main guy that runs around here taking care of everything, you're a problem solver, which is what I am. They were never happy. They were always like, they made me miserable because they hated the fact they had to be here in the first place. And then you get into this industry of custom paint and motorcycles, and you're, for the most part, dealing with someone who is so stoked to have this paint job. I just want my bike to be badass, to be better than fucking Bob's over here. Yeah. And I'm so stoked to go to the fucking bar this weekend and show them up. You know what I mean? And when you show them the paint job, they're like, they tip you. You know what I mean? And so you get in that world, I'm like, fuck all those other industries. Like, I want to be at a place where when I finish a job, if I do a good job, people are fucking stoked. Yeah. And that's building bikes, building them, painting them, making parts for them. Like, that's this industry, man. Like, when it's good, it's fucking like you're on cloud nine, man.
Yeah. I mean, for years, I was in construction for a long time, and my friends all tattooed, and they would tell me about, oh yeah, well, I swapped out some work. I need an electrician at the house, and yeah, I just tattooed him a little bit. Man, he hooked me up, and blah blah blah. And once Alleyway got going, I was like, man, I started having
the opportunities.
Opportunities and pull like that, where I'm like, no, I just hooked this guy up, and we hooked him up on, I don't know, paint job, tire change or something, and I'm like, yeah, man, and they're always so stoked to. I mean, these motorcycles are people's babies, man. Yeah. They're like fucking thrilled, man. I did a 21-inch front wheel conversion on a Road King for a guy that I did a bunch of paint work on his bike. And I was like, man, I just kind of want to upgrade some stuff. I'm like, well, you can put a 21 on it, fat spoke, and, and we'll get it all hooked up. And obviously not a super difficult job. And he comes and picks a bike up, and he was just like blown away. So, man, I can't believe how much it changes the bike. Yeah. I'm like, dude, yeah, man. And I'm glad you're stoked. He's like, no, I'm super stoked. Yeah. It's a great feeling.
And that's what paint's always been, man. And I mean, I guess you call it, what is that? Instant gratification is what it kind of feels like. Yeah. And so when that's referred to through social media, I feel like that's always been this industry is, you do something and then everybody fucking, they're stoked. Like, even the people that you show, like, when you go to a bike show and that customer that you painted that bike for is there, and you're there, and he's like wanting to introduce you to all his friends, like, yeah, this is the guy that did the bike, and they're like, dude, you're so talented, you're so bad, how'd you become an artist? You know what I mean? Like, everybody's stroking you off for the most part. I mean, I think if anything I've ever been addicted to, it was that. And it wasn't because I wanted it, like I told myself I wanted it, but like secretly, like, yeah, like that is a paycheck that I never thought was going to come at the end of these kind of projects. You
don't really want to admit to it too much, but it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
It's
apply that feeling to any job out there, any job. People listening, whatever job you do, just imagine if every time you finish it, someone just walked in and goes, dude, you're fucking amazing. What? You blew my mind. It's like, all I did was fucking bag your groceries, bro. Like,
right. I got paper instead of plastic. I know you like paper.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing like when you finally get that bartender that knows the beer you want.
Yep.
Keeps it in stock and has it popped open as soon as they see you park your car. You know what I mean? Like, fuck yeah. Yeah. I pay triple the amount for this beer for that kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's a good time to. The only thing that I would say that is of all the things that I've kind of absorbed and all the different shops that I've worked in and been around, done podcasts with, the one thing I don't hear people talk about a lot, and I don't really know how to go into it either, is it like things are really different than they were 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like they are 100% different. And I feel like so many things, you know, when it comes to like even shows in Sturgis and shows in Daytona, I feel like so many people get used to, you know, the way things were and are, that changing things changes, like radical change is very hard for the motorcycle industry. And I think that right now we're going through radical changes, or they're kind of like on the cusp of happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that people are being more accepted into the performance scene.
I think people in general are finding an easier route into motorcycles. It's being exposed through social media, whether it's YouTube or whatever.
Yeah, that's true as well. Yeah.
And so, and you know, I've been bringing this up a lot, and I'm sorry for the audience, but you know, what's the difference between a guy that built some badass bikes and then got popular on YouTube or Instagram versus the guy that doesn't do it? You know what I mean? Like you see a lot of people that feel like, man, I hate bringing this up again. I'm sorry, everybody, but it's been one of those things that when I talk to a lot of shops or just people in general, I'm not trying to set them up for this like thing, but they say that like a lot of people look at people that get somewhere off social media as they didn't earn it the same way the guy that didn't have social media that earned those skills. Almost like everybody that's got a good social media following that works on bikes, paints them, builds them, whatever, they did some kind of catch me outside shit to get there instead of just build bikes and post pictures of it. You know what I mean? Yeah,
well, I mean, it's a different era of exposure with that. And if you capitalize on it, who else is to blame for it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, good on you.
Exactly.
For marketing yourself correctly. I mean, that's not something that somebody should hold against you. You know, and the rest of the people that, do, I mean, maybe they're bitter about it.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring it up is because I've been in circles where people are like, like talking about certain builders or whatever. Like, oh, well, they're, let's always go back to the same builders that built on Discovery Channel back in the day because those guys are real builders. These new generations, they're not really building bikes. I'm like, why? Why is the new generation not building bikes the same way they were? They just got an opportunity to be on TV and never had to focus on their own marketing until they got on TV.
Well, now there's a certain amount of pressure, for example, in our situation to replicate the bike that gave us the credential.
Yeah.
Where we stand right now. You know what I mean? If you don't continue to produce a product all the time, maybe that's on you. That doesn't happen overnight. And that's, a reality that we're in presently with trying to get the Bike Crunch ready for that show is that, it's time to produce.
Yeah.
You had a year and a half to get the other one together to go to California and everything. And then, every year it should be like that.
Yeah.
You should be active doing stuff, and this should be the next bike that you're putting out. But, I mean, who's independently wealthy, and there's a business to run behind that too.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I feel like if I had more insight into the hot rod culture world, I feel like there's probably a lot of takeaways from that scene that could probably, help out with a lot of the different, bike culture shit. You know what I mean? Because they're usually a couple steps ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what genre? What genre?
Well, I mean, obviously there's more money in the car industry, whether it be resto mods or air ride type situations where there seems to be always like some new things coming from AccuAir or somebody like that. New technology.
Yeah.
but at the same time, it seems like I would definitely say I see more motorcycles on the street than I see bag trucks. But at the same time, I feel like I don't know. Like I don't feel like I feel like there's more bike purchases. I don't know if there's that many custom built bikes. You know what I mean?
Well, and it takes about a gazillion times longer to build a custom car too.
Yeah.
You know, in the custom car market, from what I've seen, is, man, what you would pay for an airbagged 54 Chevy 10 years ago to now is like triple.
Dude, I was in the C10s 6 years ago, and you could get decent ones that weren't like molested for like anywhere from 7 to 15 grand, right?
Yeah.
Not no more. Add another 15 to 20 on that.
Yeah.
And the ones that are decked out with like running like LS motors or air ride or whatever the fuck, short beds, all that shit, like $50,000 to $100,000. It's like, God damn.
Yeah, a buddy of mine was going to sell me, it was a short wheelbase C10 with a big block in it for like $6 or $7 grand 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I don't really have a use for that truck. I know it's a pretty good deal. And had I fucking known where everything was going, I should have just got it and sat on it. But the car market's crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think there's always been a lot of influence on, cars to bikes and back and forth, like, I mean, that bike that we're doing for the Lakeland show, indirectly, we realized that we're going to do a throw off of the Folsom Flathead. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be twin cam drivetrain.
Nice.
So all the paint I'm going to do of 30 style.
Okay.
And then it's just a bobber with a lot of performance parts on it that'll just rip.
I think that's the direction though, man, because it brings in all the crowds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It really brings attention to the different bikes, and I think there's guys out there that are running performance baggage right now that would probably buy something like that to rip around. You know what
I mean, and not a long distance riding bike, but it's very difficult to sell a foot clutch, hand shift, no front brake
performance chopper,
4-speed. Yeah, and that bike will run geared correctly 70 miles an hour screaming, 80, 90. I mean people hold them to the.
Honestly, man, the older I get, the more I really want something skinny and clunky, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like something like a little more tactile.
Dude, the old bikes got soul to them.
They do.
And you gotta bond with them to get them to start and run right. And I mean, they take a lot of work to keep them running. Yeah. And man, I love that. I'm super passionate about that. But there's also, a sellability to a titled bike that, and again, this is people that have money. You're going to build a bike to sell. Yeah. A guy that's, going to spend 30, 40 grand on a bike that he don't know how to. Yeah, right. The combination to start that bike, he's like, oh man,
it's like a Rubik's Cube. And once you get all the colors in, then it starts.
Yeah, and hey, there's been a handful of people that have blown my mind with that 40 knucklehead restoration that I did. Yeah, man, that guy, man, he did not hesitate when he picked that bike up. So, oh yeah, I remember how I used to start this bike with a choke, boom, 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 fired it up, foot clutch, ripped out the parking lot. I thought I was going to shit my pants. I was so nervous this guy was just going to plow it into a truck, and he kind of skipped and bobbed and weaved and took off down the street and called me an hour later. Man, this thing's great. Ran it down Interstate 95 and back to the house. I was passing cars. I'm like, holy shit, dude. Are you serious? But those people are a dime a dozen, man. Yeah. Most people are going to be like, man, that's a great piece of art.
That or they're going to get on it and every little click, clank, everything that feels a little loose, anything they're gonna get super nervous about. Yeah, and I'm probably that way too on my shit. So because I'm used to riding it's
a very old technology. Yeah, it's very old technology that for the most part wasn't the greatest design.
Yeah.
You know, Harley stuff got reformed every few years. Mm-hmm. So it didn't get really great, you know, but they're like tractors. They'll get you around, make a bunch of noise. And I love them, but
I do too, man. I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to dip my toe into that. It's something I want to do. I want to do it. I'm always worried about getting too old to be able to ride a rigid. You know what I mean? Not like, you know, obviously I drink a lot of beer and I'm not as skinny as I need to be.
That'll help you a lot with the rigid.
But I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. Like to me, it's like it could be a missed opportunity for an experience on a motorcycle. Like I've been lucky to experience a lot of different types of bikes, but I've never really experienced the realistic vintage chopper era style. You know what I mean? Like you said, the foot clutch, the kickstart, you know, just all the rigidness of the bike.
Man, you know,
doesn't stop very well.
Kickstarting a motorcycle and making that combination happen is just something you gravitate towards it and like it, or it's a burden to you.
Yeah.
But when you bond with that bike and you know exactly how, like, I've had a couple other panheads that fucking hated me.
Yeah.
Francine loves me, like, knock on wood right now,
Yeah.
you know? And when you get one like that they're all a little bit different, but you get one that you know, like I know exactly how many squirts of gas to give that bike.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that flathead over there with the magneto, if we put oil and gas in that right now, I know the exact combination that thing would fire over in a handful of kicks. Mm-hmm. If I started regularly, it would fire off first kick, you know, and that's a great feeling to have taken a bike that's a piece of history, or, you know, something that's 40, 50, 60 years old. And you know, man, that's a great feeling. But and a big part of it is the right environment to ride them in. Yeah.
See, I feel like here, you know, you have city, you're in the city for the most part. Because I was just thinking about that, because where I live, we have a cool little downtown area that's like a mile and a half away. You know, Dallas downtown proper is 25, 30 miles. Might be a tough run to do that, but
yeah,
it feels like that's the kind of thing I would like to just cruise the streets on. Like, you know, I'm not trying to, I don't know, like, I feel like you're going to, in a shorter amount of distance, you're going to get more experience of being on the road. You're going to feel more. You're going to...
Man, it's raw.
It's raw. Yeah, it's like you're
raw.
taking...
You can feel that. You can feel the motor hitting. You can feel the carburation happening. All the right smells are going on. You stink afterwards. You know, like somebody burnt gas all over you. It's fucking hot rod shit. It's great.
It's almost like if you think about like riding bikes and like as you ride it, how much information you're taking in. On a road glide, you're not... I mean, you're taking information in, but not nowhere near as much as you are on that. I mean, that you're feeling so much. You're feeling the road because of the lack of suspension or the rubber mounts that don't exist on those type of things. You feel the motor, the road, the just everything. And I feel like the cool factor becomes it is raw. It is an acquired taste. It is something not everybody can go swipe a credit card to be a part of that scene. It does take a certain type of person to fit it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it don't start itself. It don't maintain itself. Well, like my 62 panhead, you know, hydraulic front end, swing arm, shocks rear, and a pogo seat. Man, that thing rode like a cloud.
For real.
But it you know, hydraulic lifters, so it sounded like a sewing machine, and just... But it's clunky, and it's, you know, but then you have other rigid frame choppers that are real loud, obnoxious, and, you know, jerky, and you know, you can feel your chain being out of adjustment, and, you know, shit like that, which is great too, man. You create that, like, it's a vibration zen with it.
Yeah.
That, you know, you're like at one with it.
I feel like I've you know, one of my when I rode across the country the first time on my gold FXR, that was the closest thing to anything like that I've ever had. just being an Evo motor.
Yeah.
And I feel like I used to have this thing where like if I was going on a bike trip the next day, I'd never be able to sleep the day before. I just never be able to sleep. I was like, I know we're leaving at 3 a.m., but man, it's 9:30. I'm just staring at the ceiling, And it used to be because I was like, am I going to make it?
Right. Yeah.
It's like all the things that could go wrong, blah, blah, blah. I'm an overthinker. That's just who I am. And now it's like I've had 0 issues with my bagger. I've 25,000 miles this year, both coasts, in the middle twice. You know what I mean? Like I've had 0 issues. Just start it and go every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I didn't even change the oil in between.
Man, I'm horrible with checking my oil and all the new stuff.
And so it's like
why does it leak?
It's all in there.
It's all. Where did it go?
And so like I think that maybe part of this whole like this hiatus of riding for the next 4 months and forcing myself to take my bagger down to the frame. Part of it is I want to see if I still have an eye for customizing an entire bike, frame off. And the other side of it is I want to be nervous when I ride it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That nervousness is like, it kind of makes the road go by quicker because you're just so in tune with the bike. And I think that's where you really feel the soul, is because like you have to be in the right mindset to allow whatever that soul is of the bike to come into you. And I think nervousness is the one.
Well, man, there's a bonding period that goes on with a bike that you put together. There's the first 2 miles, first 5 miles, first 10 miles. Then you might do 20, 30, 50. Then you're going to jump up into 200. And the first time you go out of town and make it back, you're like, fuck yeah, man, we're on. Yeah, this bike's good.
Are we in love right now?
You go further and further, and then next thing you know, like the bond grows, but it's still, yeah, man, you're fucking nervous.
Yeah, that's the one thing I just don't have it anymore. I don't have. I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, in honesty, but that nervousness does kind of create a different experience, if that makes sense. And I guess I had that whenever I first put the last 131 in there. I'm like, okay, I'm riding to fucking Indian Larry's block party. Let's see if this thing blows up. You know what I mean? And and then after like iron butt after iron butt after this after that, it's like, man, this fucking thing's bulletproof. You know what I mean? Do 1,000 miles, go take your shit off the bike and drop it at the hotel, and then go bang willies down the drink some beers and get fucking wild on it. And then the next day do another 1,000 miles. It's like,
I would have called it that after the first like couple hundred. I mean, like, this thing's good.
Did you hear that part of I think Mike's podcast we just did where I was talking about the dude that did 100,000 miles in 100 days?
No.
Yeah, he just finished today. I just saw his post. It's Hops Adventure, Hops _adventure. The dude for like muscle dystrophy. I have no idea how to say the word dystrophy.
Oh, muscular dystrophy,
something like that. Yeah. He did it for that charity, and he bought a brand new bike, and he put like a fuel cell in the back seat, and it's ran into it's got lines that go to it, and he literally did it. He today I'm saying that he did it, 100,000 miles in 100 days.
Damn, that's impressive,
dude. I reached out to him like a week ago. Do the podcast. He said he'll come. He's from Houston, so honestly, I'd have flown the dude in. Right. I'd have just like, hey man, what's your fucking? Give me your information. Let me get you a flight. Because I want to hear that story. That's, I mean, not. Yeah, it'd be awesome to plug the cause that he did it for, but that's a feat, man. Like, and I'm not saying that he's the only one that's ever done it, but yeah, technically, if you were to break it down in simple terms, that's 1,000 miles per day for 100 days straight. Obviously, you can do a little bit more or less to kind of like...
Yeah, but after 20 days...
Yeah.
1,000-mile days.
And not to mention that, you also got maintenance on the bike in between that, too.
Didn't even think about that. I was just thinking about our truck ride to California going, dude, I was already kind of over it in the truck.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what he did route-wise. I know that he didn't just do, like, circles, but... I mean, that's a lot.
But you're going to do 1,000 miles in a day. You're not going 50 miles an hour. I mean, you can, but you ain't really.
You're not gonna. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. Well, it's like today. I just because I guess my truck has the mileage, and then it like when I reset the trip, it also does how many hours. So literally, I hit 1,000 miles right at 14 hours of driving. So I was like, on a bike, you know, you can get away with speeding a little bit more on a bike on the open highway because they're kind of hard to hit you with the radar.
Right.
And what I've always said is like, if you're coming, the cars that are ahead of you, if you're going over hills where typically cops will sit, if you have a car in front of you, watch their taillights. If they hit the taillights on the top of that hill, something's over.
You've already seen it.
Yeah, something's on the other side, so slow your ass down. Or, you know, I'm from a street racing era where we used to go street racing all the time, so I just have this like sixth sense for scoping out cops. Not saying I'm always right with it, but it's like I drive around like just scanning for cops all the time. So when I'm like, why I lead a lot of the bike trips I do with my friends is because I'm good at that. I'm good at spotting them. Once again, not perfect, but I'm also the guy like something doesn't feel right with this overpass.
Yeah.
And then I look back when we pass it and there's a cop sitting on the other side waiting on you to just haul ass past it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And 10 right here is fucking the worst, dude. 10 from like basically Jacksonville all the way to Pensacola. Like you got the trees in between it and the cops just fucking sitting right
up by Tallahassee's bad.
Tallahassee was the worst part. Yeah.
Up by Tallahassee's bad. But they got a bunch of, you know, exits they can go get all their freaking donuts at. Not out in the middle of, you know, nowhere.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's a wild one.
Yeah, man.
Well, shit. We're about 2.5 into this one.
All right.
It's good.
Yeah, man.
How many beers we do?
Handful.
About 6 apiece, I guess.
Looking that way.
Well, man, I appreciate it. Hey, so you know so what's the plan for next year? I mean, I don't know if we'll get back on before then. So what do you think's gonna happen with Daytona with you guys and stuff like that?
We're gonna do a handful of shows. We'll do a performance show. We'll do a chopper show. I got building 2 bikes going in next year. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing that 69 pan shovel, which will be a pretty mellow chopper for my buddy Tom. And then I'm doing that 1990 RP for Jeff Brown, and doing a little collaboration with Oliver Jones with Cut Right. And, you know, creep into it and start figuring out what shows we're going to get to and make it around a little bit more.
Yeah, it's always fun figuring out what the next ones are. Sturgis yet?
Maybe this year.
Maybe this year.
We'll see. How, you know.
The chopper scene is not very well represented there.
No. If I was going to do anything, it depends on when that FXR gets completed.
Yeah.
And, you know, where Jeff wants to take it. You know?
Yeah, I 100% feel like the FXR show in Sturgis is kind of like the pinnacle FXR thing. You know, to win that means something. Yeah. In my opinion, at least.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to do Sturgis this year, but, you know, coming off this past year being gone so much, we'll see how quick I can get stuff in order and get the ball rolling again.
Yeah, it's just tough, man. I know how you feel. Well, shit. So, once again, Alleyway Kustoms.
Thanks for having me on.
Instagram. All your shit.
Yeah, man.
Kind of drunk already.
All good. All good.
All right, bud. All
right.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Fish for sitting down and hanging out late night at the shop. Really appreciate that, bud. If you guys enjoy these podcasts, you know you can support it and help out with the Patreon is where you can do that and get a lot of unreleased content. We dropped 6 podcasts last month on our Patreon that you won't be able to hear anywhere but there. So helping this podcast with $1 a month or $5 or whatever you feel comfortable with, it goes so much further because you actually get content that is unreleased. And I mean, if you add that up, we're doing about a minimum of 5 episodes a month and then another 3 or 4 on the Patreon. So we're just, you know, we're doing it. We're trying to give you something for your money. And in return, it helps us do things with the podcast. So thank you guys for all you have been doing. I hope to see a lot of you at the Mama Tried House of Harley Industry Party, and looking forward to that. And got some more good podcasts coming this month. We just booked Ryan Cruzy and Trent to come down and do the show, do the live podcast. So you're gonna be able to catch that next Monday, the 22nd of November, live on our YouTube. If you haven't already, you might want to go subscribe and get ready for that one. Get some beers ready. It's gonna be a rager. So until then, we'll see you guys, and have a good one. And yeah, peace or something.